My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 36 years old, and I work as a travel journalist. For most of my life, I believed I had everything figured out. My career, my goals, my ambitions. Love, on the other hand, was something I had never fully understood. I thought love was just another experience, like visiting a new country or trying a new dish, exciting for a while but never meant to last. But I was wrong. This is the story of how I discovered the truth about love while traveling across Europe. It's a story of adventure, self-discovery, and a journey that changed my life forever. I had been working as a travel journalist for almost a decade, hopping from one country to another, writing about the beauty of different cultures, the flavors of exotic foods, and the stories hidden in ancient streets. It was the perfect life, or so I thought. My latest assignment was a 3-month journey across Europe, covering the lesser-known destinations that held hidden wonders. I was excited, not just because of the assignment, but because I had planned this trip for years. It was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime. But life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. The first stop was Italy. I landed in Rome on a warm summer evening, the golden sunset painting the ancient city in hues of red and orange. I had been here before, but this time felt different. Maybe it was because, deep down, I was searching for something more than just another story. As I wandered through the cobbled streets of Trastevere, camera in hand, I heard laughter echoing from a small cafe. That's when I saw her. She was sitting at a table near the entrance, sipping a glass of wine, completely lost in a book. Her dark brown hair fell in soft waves around her face, and there was something peaceful about her presence. She wasn't like the other tourists, rushing to take pictures or checking their phones. She was simply enjoying the moment. Without thinking, I walked into the cafe and ordered a coffee. As I waited, I stole another glance at her. That's when she looked up, her deep hazel eyes meeting mine. For a second, I forgot where I was. "Are you lost?" she asked with a smile. I chuckled, shaking my head. "No, just appreciating the view." She raised an eyebrow playfully. "I hope you mean the city and not me." I laughed. "Both, actually. That's how I met Sophia. Sophia was an artist from Spain, traveling through Europe just like me. She painted landscapes and street scenes, capturing the essence of every place she visited. There was something different about her, something that made me want to know more. We spent the next few days together, exploring Rome in a way I never had before. She showed me hidden alleyways filled with local artists, tiny bakeries with the best cannoli I had ever tasted, and secret spots where the sunset looked like a painting. One evening, as we stood on a bridge overlooking the Tiber River, she turned to me and asked, "What are you really looking for, Ethan?" I hesitated. No one had ever asked me that before. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've spent my whole life chasing stories, traveling from place to place, but lately, I feel like something's missing." She smiled softly. "Maybe it's not about finding something. Maybe it's about feeling something." I didn't understand what she meant at the time, but those words stayed with me. From Italy, I traveled to France, thinking I'd never see Sophia again. But fate had other plans. One afternoon in Paris, As I was walking through Montmartre, I saw a familiar figure painting on the sidewalk. "Sophia?" I called out. She turned, surprised, before breaking into a wide smile. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I said, laughing. She told me she had decided to spend some time in Paris, painting and soaking in the inspiration of the city. It felt like destiny. We spent our days wandering through museums, eating croissants by the Seine, and sharing stories about our lives. One night, as we stood beneath the twinkling lights of the Eiffel Tower, she asked me, "Do you believe in love, Ethan?" I hesitated. I used to think love was just an idea, something people talked about but never really understood. "And now?" she pressed. I looked at her, realizing the truth. "Now, I think love is standing right in front of me." She smiled, reaching for my hand. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just another experience. This was real. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotions. We traveled together, from the lavender fields of Provence to the canals of Venice, from the snow-capped peaks of Switzerland to the sun-kissed beaches of Spain. But love isn't just about the beautiful moments, it's about the challenges too. As we moved from one city to another, I began to fear the inevitable. What would happen when the journey ended? One evening in a small cafe in Barcelona, Sophia looked at me with a sadness in her eyes. She sighed, looking down. "I don't want to lose you, but I also don't want to be just another chapter in your travel stories." Her words hit me harder than I expected. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of staying. I was afraid of leaving. That's when I knew. I had found something worth holding on to. "Sophia," I said, taking her hands in mine, "I don't want this to be just a chapter. I want it to be the whole story." Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Are you sure?" I nodded. For the first time in my life, I'm absolutely sure. About how much my life had changed in just a year. The Ethan Carter who had walked into this cafe months ago had been a man chasing experiences, running from attachments, and believing that love was nothing more than a fleeting emotion. But now, as I sat across from Sophia, holding her hand, I knew that love was the greatest journey of all. She looked at me with that soft, knowing smile of hers. "You're thinking about something," she said, tilting her head. I chuckled. "I'm thinking about how this all started, how I was supposed to be on a solo adventure across Europe, and instead, I found something I never expected." She squeezed my hand. "The best journeys are the ones that surprise us." I exhaled, staring out at the cobbled streets of Rome, the place that had unknowingly set my life on a new path. "You were right, you know," I said after a moment. "About what?" she asked. "About love. I used to think it was just another experience, something temporary. But now I know love is the adventure itself. It's not about moving from place to place. It's about finding someone who makes every place feel like home." Her eyes softened, and for a moment, we just sat there, letting the weight of those words sink in. I had spent years traveling, searching for meaning in new cities, new people, new stories. But the greatest story I had ever found was sitting right in front of me. Sophia leaned closer. Ethan, what's next for us? It was the question I had been thinking about for weeks. Our love story had started on the road, in the midst of adventure, but we couldn't keep wandering forever. We needed a place to build a life together. I took a deep breath. I have an idea, I said, but it's a little crazy. Ethan, what happens after this? I didn't have an answer. I don't know, I admitted. Town we chose was quiet and picturesque, with whitewashed houses, narrow winding streets, and the soothing sound of waves crashing against the shore. It was nothing like the fast-paced cities I had once called home, but it was perfect. Sophia had always dreamed of having a small art studio by the sea, and now that dream had become a reality. Every morning she would set up her easel by the window, painting the endless shades of blue in the ocean. I would sit at my desk, typing away on my next travel piece. But now, my stories weren't just about the places I visited. They were about the love that had changed my life. One afternoon, as I watched Sophia paint, I asked, "Do you ever miss the adventure? The thrill of traveling from one place to another?" She glanced at me, smiling. Ethan, love is the greatest adventure of all. And besides, who says the journey has to end? We can still explore, just together this time. She was right. The adventure wasn't over. It was just beginning. A new chapter. A few months later, we decided to take one last trip before settling down completely. It wasn't like the fast-paced solo travels of my past. This time, we traveled slowly, savoring every moment. We wandered through the vineyards of Tuscany, explored the quaint villages of the French countryside, and even returned to Paris, where we had shared our first real conversation about love. One evening, as we sat along the Seine, Sophia leaned against me and whispered, "Ethan, I have something to tell you." I turned to her, my heart skipping a beat at the seriousness in her voice. "What is it?" She hesitated for a moment before smiling softly. "We're going to be parents." For a moment I just stared at her, unable to process her words. "Wait, what?" She laughed, her eyes shining. "I'm pregnant, Ethan." A rush of emotions hit me all at once. Joy, shock, excitement, even a little fear. I had spent my entire life chasing stories, but now the greatest story of all was about to begin. I pulled her into my arms, holding her close. "Sophia, this is incredible." Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "Are you happy?" "Happy?" I laughed. I've never been happier in my entire life. A home by the sea. When we returned to Spain, everything felt different. The little house by the coast wasn't just our home anymore. It was the place where our future would begin. As the months passed, I watched Sophia's belly grow, and with it, my love for her deepened in ways I never imagined. I had always thought adventure meant crossing borders and chasing the unknown, but now I realized that the greatest adventure was right here, unfolding before my eyes. One rainy evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Sophia took my hand and said, "Ethan, do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had never met that night in Rome?" I thought about it for a moment before shaking my head. Number. Because somehow, I think we were always meant to find each other. Whether in Rome, in Paris, or anywhere else in the world, our paths would have crossed eventually. She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. I like to believe that too. And in that moment, I knew. This was the life I had always been searching for. Not just the places, not just the experiences, but the love, the family, and the journey that would never end. The months passed in a blur of excitement, anticipation, and quiet moments of love. Our little house by the sea transformed into a home filled with warmth and dreams of the future. We painted the nursery a soft shade of blue, not because we knew if we were having a boy or a girl, but because it reminded us of the ocean, the place where our journey had truly begun. Sophia became even more radiant as her pregnancy progressed. Every morning, she would wake up early and stand by the window, looking out at the waves. I would watch her from bed, memorizing every detail of her, the way she gently ran her hands over her belly, the way she closed her eyes as the salty breeze brushed against her skin. "Are you talking to the baby again?" I teased one morning as I walked up behind her, wrapping my arms around her waist. She laughed, placing her hands over mine. "Of course. I want our little one to know the sound of my voice before they even arrive." I kissed her cheek. "I bet they already do. And they know how much they're loved." She turned to me, her eyes full of emotion. "Ethan, do you ever think about what kind of parents we'll be?" I took a deep breath. I think about it all the time. And I know one thing for sure. We'll be the kind of parents who love without limits, who teach our child that life is an adventure, that love is the greatest gift, and that home is wherever we are together. Tears welled up in her eyes as she rested her head against my chest. "I love you, Ethan. And I love you, Sophia, more than anything in this world." The day that changed everything. One late summer evening, just as the sky turned shades of pink and gold, Sophia clutched my hand tightly. Her face contorted in pain, and I instantly knew it was time. A rush of panic and excitement filled my chest as I helped her into the car. "Breathe, baby. We're almost there," I reassured her as we sped toward the hospital. The hours that followed felt like a dream. I held Sophia's hand as she fought through the pain, whispering words of encouragement, love, and endless admiration. She was the strongest person I had ever known, and at that moment, I knew I would spend my whole life making sure she never forgot that. And then, just as dawn broke over the horizon, our baby's cry filled the room. Tears spilled from my eyes as I looked at the tiny, perfect life in Sophia's arms. A baby boy, our son. Sophia's face was glowing with exhaustion and happiness as she gazed down at him. "Ethan, meet Luca," she whispered. "Luca," I repeated, my voice thick with emotion. "He's perfect, Sophia, just like his mother." She looked up at me, her eyes full of love. "We did it, Ethan." I leaned down, kissing her forehead. "You did it, my love. And our adventure just got even better. A love that lasts forever." The days that followed were filled with sleepless nights, soft lullabies, and a love so deep that it was almost overwhelming. I would watch Sophia cradle Luca in her arms, humming softly as she rocked him to sleep, and I would feel my heart swell with gratitude. This was the life I had never known I wanted. One evening, as I held Luca in my arms, I whispered, "You have no idea how lucky you are, little guy. You have the most incredible mother in the world." Sophia, half asleep beside me, smiled, "And the most incredible father." I looked down at her, my heart bursting with love. "I never knew love could feel like this, Sophia. I thought I had seen everything, experienced everything, but nothing compares to this." She reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers. "This is our greatest journey, Ethan, and it's only just beginning." And as I sat there with the love of my life beside me and our son in my arms, I knew this was home, this was happiness, this was the journey of a lifetime, the end.